Welcome back to WRPL. It's the podcast where we talk about all the things we were watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
What's up, Steve?
Not much, Ben. What's going on with you?
Happy Sunday, I guess. Big weekend, big releases. The not Barbenheimer mashup that everybody wanted. It never caught fire like Barbenheimer, but we got Gladiator 2 and Wicked. I'll talk about Wicked a little bit if you care. I'm sure you'll see it next week or something.
I've seen the Broadway show,
so we could talk.
I know what happens.
Yeah, okay, and because I'll have some questions as well. But our main topic is Gladiator 2. Let's start with a roll. You want to roll at the same time?
Let's do it.
All right, 1, 2, 3. You got an
18 and you got a 2.
Jesus. Fine. All right, well, I guess you won, so you go first.
Sure.
You got to lose one thing, right?
I'll just say some things that I'm currently involved in that I'm watching, but I have not completed, but I should have 2 of them completed by our next podcast. But I always say that, and then I don't.
Yeah.
But,
Life happens.
Well, we'll see. I'm better at going through TV shows than movies. Anyway, one show I won't be finishing because it's not actually going to be finished till next year is Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 2.
Jesus Christ.
This show's bad. It's not good. It was a guilty pleasure show for me. I think it kind of held up into Season 4, but it really started to dip down, and then Season 5 was not very good, and Season 6 is just embarrassing to watch. I am embarrassed that I'm watching this show that is so dumb and silly and poorly written and just absolutely absurd. And there's people who really love this show. So there's that. I can't wait to be done with it. And I never have to see or talk about it again. But there is apparently a new Karate Kid movie coming out with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan and a new kid.
But no Jaden Smith.
Who knows? Maybe he cameos.
Maybe.
But can we let things die? Anyway, I am also watching The Terror, an AMC show that if I remember correctly, you really liked.
I did, for the most part.
Okay. I'm only 5 episodes in, so I got 5 more. I'm not going to say anything until I've completed it. I'll just say that I dig the setup.
Sure. But have they done the paddling yet?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Someone getting hit on the butt?
Oh. Well, there's a flogging. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, gross.
Brutal. And I'll just say, don't watch Season 2.
I remember you not liking 2 as much.
Season 2 sucks. And maybe it's better in a marathon instead of waiting week to week, but I did not like it. There's some good spooky stuff in it, but as a story, not a big fan.
That's a Japanese internment camp, right?
Yep.
And finally, what's the other thing I told you I was watching? I haven't slept in 2 days. There's a Terror, Cobra Kai. Oh, and I'm all caught up on Arcane. The final 3 episodes of Season 2 came out yesterday. I've not gotten a chance to see that, but we'll talk about that next week.
Probably, yeah. Okay, cool. Some things to look forward to. I'll just do one real quick. We talked a little bit before we got our food, but yeah, Dune Prophecy had its first episode out. I'll give a couple more before I call it quits, and I can see myself calling it quits on this one.
And yet you still go back to Walking Dead every season and Fear the Walking Dead and Daryl Dixon.
Because I'm committed to those characters. I don't give a shit about the Dune universe. I'm only there because I do like the Dune movies, but I'm not obsessed enough to, I gotta dig deep into the lore and the mythology and everything. I don't really care because I tried to read the Dune book and it sucks. And so, I'm not I'm not too hung up if I drop this off. Whereas Walking Dead, I've been with these characters for years, and if they want to keep going, then I'll be there with them. Daryl Dixon did just end a couple weeks ago, and there will be a season 3. They already had a promo for it at the end. But it's now Daryl and Carol. Now they're stuck in France. They saved the little boy Prophet, and he's going to America to be with, everybody there. They're waiting for him, and now they got to find their own way home.
Cool.
But yeah, Dune Prophecy. Who cares? We'll see. There's a new episode
I might
tonight.
be more interested in Dune Prophecy if it goes like lore wise, like super fucking weird, like how it does
After the fact,
later
yeah.
books. But I don't think that would make much sense. In connection to all that.
Yeah, you don't get weird and then get kind of normal and then back to weird. But it is kind of weird that the heroes, it's all about eugenics and breeding the right people to get the person you want, and that's kind of gross and fucked up, and I don't really love that. So I don't know why we're supposed to be cheering for these people, but I like Mark Strong. He's good. And what's her? Oh, I can't remember her name. She was in Red Dragon. Fuck. But she's the main person, and she's good as well. But I just, like I said about Rings of Power, if we already know where it ends up, do I really give a shit about the journey that gets there? Especially with Rings of Power, it's what, 2,000 years before the Fellowship?
Yeah, roughly, we'll say.
Well, even if it's 5,000 years, this is 10,000 years. How am I supposed to care that far in advance? Like, how many generations that's going to take? I don't care.
It's interesting we're in this time where, we have movies that are constantly, we have movies from 25 years ago getting sequels, as we're going to talk about shortly. We have all these remakes and stuff and all that good stuff. We have Broadway shows that are less and less original and just bringing back old popular shows, or taking a popular movie and turning it into a musical like Legally Blonde or whatever. There's just like no original thing. It's like, so what are we going to do with television? Well, television for the past 15 years or whatever, it's the golden age of television with Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. And what about all this original stuff? Well, like, no, we're actually going to just take popular movies and then make them into TV shows from like side characters. We're doing it with The Penguin. We're doing it with Dune. We're going to put all this money into it. So now maybe that's just what our TV landscape is going to be. There is going to be less and less Breaking Bads and Mad Men's and Sopranos, and just more like, hey, you want to see the Ghostbusters TV show starring Paul Rudd?
Yeah.
It's coming. Or it's actually young Paul Rudd played by the old Paul Rudd, and it takes place 10,000 years in the in the Clueless universe. Or whatever the fuck, I don't know. But it's just absurd.
It's funny you say that, because apparently the top 10 highest grossing films of this year have all been sequels.
Of course.
And that's the first time in history. It may have been, 9 of the 10 or 7 of the 10, but this, as of now, because, movies are still coming out. Craven could fucking sweep. You don't know how good that's going to do. But as of right now, top 10 highest grossing films, all sequels.
I'm praying Nosferatu sneaks in at number 10.
Yeah.
I don't think it will.
Doubt it. And especially when you come out so late in the year, you have even less time to make money.
Do you have that list on you? I'm just curious.
I don't know. But Inside Out 2, Dune 2, that's all I got. But it's funny that you say, there's no original stories.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying there's less and less.
It's less. We don't get the Breaking Bads, and it would just be, a spin-off of a movie to expand either that movie to be 10 hours long, or we're doing a prequel or a sequel or something. I actually started a new show. It's not new. It's new to me. But its third season will start in February, and I've only taken this long to watch it because it's a Showtime show. So you have to kind of wait until it falls onto other platforms.
Sure.
But I started Yellowjackets.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever watch any of this?
No, I think my wife did. This is the like girls soccer team or something that crashes on an island or
Well, they're not
something?
on an island. They're just in the woods. I think it's Canada. They're on their way to a soccer championship, and their plane crashes. It's a private plane. One of the students' dad is super rich and insisted on it. And I say this is like an original story because it's not really based off anything. Actually, I don't know if it's based off of a book, but it is. It's just Lord of the Flies. It's
Okay.
the same sort of thing. They after they crash, they're there for 19 months. So it's not just they devolved into insanity after a week or something. No, they're there for a while. And the show opens up with them chasing one of the women, and she falls into a spike pit. And then we see them string up the body. It's all snowy. They're all wearing animal furs and antlers and stuff. And they cut pieces of the body off and they eat it. So then
That's the opening scene?
that's the opening scene. Then we flash to the future and see some of these people after they get rescued kind of have normal lives. You have Melanie Linsky, who is married and has a kid now and is just kind of a suburban housewife. There's a woman who she's running for political, I think it's like not city council, not mayor, but it's like what is the word I'm looking for? She's a politician. She's going through an election to be nominated for some position. Then you have Christina Ricci's character, who is like an absolute psychopath, and she works in old folks' home. She's like a really nice, cheery people, but nobody likes her. She always is saying like hi to all of her coworkers, and they just roll their eyes because she's kind of a sad, lonely woman who has a bird. They show her on a date with a dude who's totally not into her, and the way she like guilts him into coming into her house, and she's embarrassing. She's my favorite character. I know I'm impartial because I love Christina Ricci, but she is the most fun character to watch because she is a little psychopath. And then there's what's her fucking name? Natural Born Killers. From
Jennifer Lewis?
Juliette Lewis.
Juliette Lewis, yeah.
She is like she came from white trash and never got her life together. She bonded with one of the guys who was on the crash because there's men there too. It's just mostly women. And she's been in and out of rehab. And so it's like these four we know did survive. They are very good at dancing around of like only 5 of us are left or there's only 10 of us left. That like so there are others out there because they say some of us kind of disappeared and were never heard from again just to leave the door open so you don't know who dies and who doesn't. And then so on in the younger versions we have like Ella Purnell and I can't remember her name, but she was in Scream 5 and 6. You know, the twins. It was like the brother and sister.
Yeah.
The woman. And what's her Sophie Thatcher from Heretic? She's in it. She grows up to be Juliette Lewis.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they have this crash, and then we slowly see how it evolves. Some of them die in the crash. Some of them, they get attacked by wolves, and they find a cabin in the middle of nowhere with an airplane. Can they get the plane working to get out of there? And we got to look for water, and we have a gun, but who's the best shot? Like just slowly kind of figuring out who's good at what. How relationships start to fall apart. One of the girls, the one who grows up to be Melanie Linsky, she's pregnant, and like because she like screwed a guy the night before the flight, and then so now I only watched season 1. By the end of that, I'd say we're 2 to maybe 3 months in, and now it's their first like snowfall, and so they're like, "Fuck, we gotta, look for food." That one of the girls, she doesn't have her like her medication and she's kind of psychotic and she's having visions, and some people are like, you're just kind of a crazy person, and others like, no, but she predicted this and this. So there's just a nice big cast of characters, and they've been slowly dying off one by one, and we just know some of them make it. But how far do they get? Oh, yeah. And in modern times, people are sending the survivors like these postcards with this little symbol that they haven't really explained yet. And like someone knows. And we've all band together and said, we don't talk about eating each other. We'll just say it was really tough, but we made it through. And it's been 25 years, and there's a news reporter, sneaking around, asking questions, trying to get people to spill their guts and write a book about it, and someone's blackmailing them, saying, we know everything and blah blah blah. There's a lot going on, but it's a really good show that I'm super invested in. It sucks that I'm going to get through the nine episodes of season 2, and then I'm going to have to wait months and months and months before I can see season 3.
So when does the smoke monster show up?
No smoke monster yet. Now, at first, like, there's nothing really supernatural, but there are times where it makes it seem like someone almost dies from being attacked by wolves, and as she's dying, she like sees something in the woods and thinks there's more to life than this, and starts maybe believing the psychotic one who's having visions. And so there's like a tinge of supernatural stuff, but nothing as crazy as a smoke monster.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that's on, what have you?
Season 1's on Netflix. Season 1 and 2, I believe it's Peacock or Paramount Plus. One of them has the other two. So gotta figure that out.
All right.
So just watch the first season, and I highly recommend it. I think it would be a good watch for you and your wife if she didn't go through it.
But back to the top 10 of the year, just for anyone who was interested.
Sure.
All right, so top 10. At number 10, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Number 9, Bad Boys, Ride or Die. That's in the top 10? Jesus
that
Christ.
was the number 1 movie of 2020, but that was because of COVID, and only like 6 movies were released before everything got shut down.
Fair enough. Number 8, Kung Fu Panda 4. Number 7, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire.
I can't believe that made more than Kingdom. I mean, I can, but it's sad.
Number 6, Twisters. Number 5, Dune Part 2. Number 4, Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Number 3, Despicable Me 4.
Yuck.
Deadpool and Wolverine at number 2.
Oh, yeah.
And then Inside Out at number 1.
Crazy.
And at number 11, it Ends With Us, the Blake Lively movie.
Really?
Yep.
I know that was doing really well, but I didn't expect top 20.
Yeah, so it just missed out on being, I believe that's based on a book, but it's not a sequel.
Okay, all right.
So
just missed out.
Just missed out.
Well, thank you for your sacrifice so we could have a year of nothing but sequels. Okay, so I saw A Real Pain. I don't need to really talk about it. It's very good. Good performances. I think everybody's really looking at Kieran Culkin because he is really good. He could go from like sad and manic and angry to like just joyful and fun to be around. And so he's given the opportunity to just play a big range.
Do you think he's going to get... I haven't heard much like Oscar talk about this movie, but do you think there's a supporting nomination in there for him?
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
But I think Jesse Eisenberg does a really good job. He's very Eisenbergian as he normally is, but I think of like really having a scene where it would play as your...
This is the Oscar
thing. Like, he's got the good one.
Oh, okay.
And I'm very surprised with how it goes. It avoids stereotypes. Like, Kieran Culkin is talking to a woman about her past. And so when Jesse Eisenberg is asking about it, he's like, well, it's none of my business to tell you about her. And like, oh, okay. And then later Jesse Eisenberg is telling the whole group that Kieran Culkin tried to kill himself. And so in a typical movie, someone would let that slip to Kieran Culkin, and then it would cause a fight between him and his cousin, and then they would like have to get over it. But that never happens. It's little things that are set up to be, oh, I know exactly where it's going to go. Where he was talking to this woman getting about her past, you could tell from the get-go, these two are going to fuck. Mm-hmm. And they even stay up drinking one night, and maybe they did, but they never confirm it. And it's just kind of messes with your expectations with how a movie should go, but it's not like it's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it is a good story that is very somber with likable characters, and I recommend it.
I would like to see this movie, so I don't want to talk about it or anything, no spoilers, but what would you give it as a grade?
I gave it an A- because it is just like a well put together, really well shot, like just his framing is very good. And this is Jesse Eisenberg directing and writing, and I know he directed before, so I'm interested in checking that out. But he's got a good eye, and I think it looks really good for being not like in Mardi Gras or something where everything's colorful and it lends to being beautiful looking. It's Poland, so it's kind of somber looking, but it can still be like really beautiful.
Nice. If I'm correct, I think I read that this is the first movie that they have ever let film in an actual internment camp.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay.
That is true.
All right.
And it does happen. It's not like they let us film and we decided to skip that day.
Yeah.
No, they actually do.
Turns out it was all a lie anyway.
There is a scene where there's like, I don't know if it's supposed to be a representation of the ash from the furnaces or if it's the actual ash from the furnaces.
There's no way. Does ash just stick around like that?
I mean, if you don't fuck with it and blow it away, it's not like out in a field and they're like, yeah, this pile's been here the whole time. But like, I want to know realistically, like, did they just say this is the amount of ash that would have been created for the amount of people who are here, or this is what was left in the furnaces and we kept it here to show? Because you see like cages of all the shoes and things like that.
Oof.
Yeah.
I can't wait to laugh at this hilarious.
And it's funny because like it is a funny movie. It has some good moments, but it does have its moments of being very somber.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Obviously, cut around that it didn't happen joke.
No, it's staying in.
Damn it. All right, cool. I look forward to seeing that one. So do you think it'll make your top 10 of the year?
Probably not.
Probably not? Okay.
No.
All right.
Like, there can be movies that I'll give a B to that I would put on my top 10 over something that's an A. Because, like,
you still enjoyed that one.
I see that this is a very good movie. Do I need to see it again? No. Do I need to own it? No. Whereas you take something, a little worse, but I had a lot more fun. Because it has rewatchability or it's going to stick with me more.
Yeah.
This was like, that was good. And it will pop up in like Movie Framed or something. And you'll be like, oh yeah, Real Pain. I forgot about that movie that came out a year ago.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Wicked a little bit. I was not going to see this movie.
And I didn't see it at all.
And you saw the stage performance. I read the original book. I hate that book. I think it sucks. And yeah, I wasn't going to because I was sick of seeing the trailers. I'm not a big musical guy unless they're straight comedies. But our buddy Nick was just sucking its dick and talking about how fucking good it was, and it may be on his top 10 of the year. He loved it so much. I'm like, okay, this is going to win me over. So I did the big double feature over the weekend, and I spent over 5 hours at the movie theater. And yeah, not for me. I don't really see. I mean, I want to say I don't see the appeal. I get why people could like this, but no song really stood out. I would never listen to this soundtrack on my own time. That Popular song I think is catchy, but I had heard bits of it before, so it's maybe just in my brain more. I couldn't tell you a single song that happens in that movie besides that. And that's probably my favorite scene of the movie. It's the funniest scene. But this, not for me. Way too fucking long. I did not care about what the lore of the Land of Oz is not super interesting. I never questioned why she was a wicked witch, and I don't know. This could have been shorter, but I don't know what happens in the second half. So, and I want to ask some questions about that because I don't care if it gets spoiled for me.
Okay.
But I don't get it. It's not for me.
I mean, in your opinion, do you see, like, there's a lot of talk about Ariana getting a Oscar nomination. Do you see that, or are you just like, the performance is fine?
No, she's the best part of this movie.
Okay.
Ariana Grande is fantastic. She's so funny. like it's a shame that she is just more of a pop star than an actress, because if you've seen any of her SNL performances, she's really good at impressions and she's just funny. She's just really good at what she does. She just happens to also be an incredible singer, and she has all the best moments. There's a part in the popular song moment where she's just like swimming around on the ground like a fish, acting like a weirdo, and it's the only part that actually made me laugh out loud. It's a shame that she just fucked her face up so bad. It's I was in the second row, and I don't think you should be that close to her face. She's still a very pretty person, but she shouldn't have touched it. But yeah, she's great. I don't think anyone does a bad job. Maybe her sister. I don't know who that person is or why they cast her. And not her sister. Elphaba's sister.
Elphaba.
Alphabet Soup is yeah, her handicapped sister in the wheelchair. Is that in the play? Because in the book she has a sister and she has no arms, and she flies around on a broom with the ruby slippers with no arms, and then the house lands on her.
I saw the show right before COVID, so it's been 4 years, pushing 5. I don't remember there being a wheelchair, but that doesn't mean there wasn't.
Okay, all right. And
I'm not even actually sure if I remember a sister character.
Well, apparently they were pretty faithful to the musical source, not because the musical isn't faithful to the book source. There's like Elphaba's born underneath a clock in a swamp or something.
Oh well, yeah, there has to be a sister character because that's
the Wicked Witch of the East.
Yeah.
So like, I am slightly interested just knowing. Okay, now that it ends here, what does she do to become so evil? Does she actually turn evil, or is it all just propaganda? Like Glinda is so shitty at magic, but she becomes, Glinda the Good Witch. So clearly there has to be some development there. But it's like someone could just tell me. I don't need to see the second half of this. I probably won't see it. I also had kind of a bad time watching it because I watched this after Gladiator, so I was already tired. And I knew I was getting into a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, which is ridiculous. If it was 2 hours and 40 minutes because, well, it's a long play and we got to fit it all in, I get it. But this is only the first half. If the second half is also that long, like, there's no reason this needs to be almost 6 hours long, does it? It could be condensed. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I didn't realize that I did go on the IMDb trivia and look at some stuff because I guess it was announced it was going to be a 2-part movie back in like April or whatever.
I don't know why everyone's being surprised.
Because they didn't market it as...
They never do. They never market those things, but they announced it.
When the other big projects come out and they're like, oh, we're breaking up into 2 parts. It's like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. They tell you it's Part 1. They never put a single Part 1 on anything until like the week of.
They didn't do it for Dune. They didn't do it for It Chapter 1. They never market it for that because people go, oh, it's only the first part. Well, I'm not going to see it until the second part comes out. And it's just like not marketing it as a musical, just like with Wonka and things like that, because you don't want to alienate people. So, but I don't know. I think that information was out there and readily available.
I didn't realize it. I mean, the show is broken up into 2 acts, so it lends itself.
Most Broadway shows are,
Sure. It lends itself to, I guess, 2 movies, but 2 3-hour movies, I would imagine would be absurd.
Is the stage performance, they break it up as soon as she like flies away from the wizard?
Yeah, Defying Gravity happens. It's the big number of the show. Intermission happens, and then you get the rest of the show.
Okay.
And that's when Act 2 starts. So if I remember correctly, basically Act 1 is all about like they're at the school meeting the wizard. Their Elphaba and Glinda's relationship and how it starts out.
They're enemies.
They're enemies, and then they become friends.
Which is like I'll give Ariana Grande props, because even when she's being a total fucking bitch, she's still a very likable character and a very watchable character.
Very
And
true to the show.
and it's like I never really cared all that much for Elphaba. It's like everyone hates her, but she seems to be over it already. She's moved past the bigotry or whatever, because every time she meets people, she gives them the list of, I didn't eat grass when I was a kid. No, I'm not seasick. And yes, I've been green my entire life. Like, she's handled it through her whole life. And so she doesn't really see it as a problem. It's not anything she has to overcome. She's all powerful, like right from the get-go. Yeah, she doesn't know how to control it yet. So I don't find her to be a very interesting character, but it's nice seeing like which is weird. Like, everyone was calling her like Galinda, and I'm like, am I losing my fucking mind? Her name's Glinda. She's Glinda the Good Witch. What's this Galinda stuff? And like, oh, it's part of it.
Yeah,
and like, okay, that makes sense. That's fine. But I like that, she has growth. She has character development. She's an actual character in a movie, which was nice to see. Unlike, the next movie we'll talk about.
So what questions do you have?
Oh, so yeah.
Not that I'm an expert on the show.
So she flies off and heads to the west, and all the monkeys follow her, I guess. Like, what makes her bad? What is she doing that makes her the Wicked Witch? Or is it all propaganda?
It's all propaganda. Okay. It's all like at no point in the show is she really like evil, from my recollection. It's kind of, if I remember correctly, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the Dr. Manhattan thing, like, I'll be the villain they need me to be, but really it's just like, or no, I think she gets water thrown on her, and then you think that she dies, but really at the end she runs away with her boyfriend. But what's cool about the second act, it establishes how the Tin Man and Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion like kind of come into being.
Okay. Well, we do meet the lion. It was like in a cage, and she lets it go into the woods. I'm assuming that's the Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, probably.
It'd be weird for them to have two different lions in this.
Yeah. But the guy she falls in love with, I think he like takes a bullet, so he's going to die, and so she uses her magic to save his life, but that makes him turn into the Scarecrow.
So that's pretty fucked up that she lights him on fire later on.
I don't know exactly how like it transitions to the Wizard of Oz.
I can understand turning into the Tin Man, like, I can't save your life, so I'll put your brain into an automaton, and maybe that will save you. But I don't know. Whatever. Gone.
But yeah, so there's some like fun stuff that they do with the lore in Act 2. And there's stuff with Glinda and her, but it's just like I think they still stay friends at the end, but it's just like, you go, I'll tell everyone you died, or whatever. And maybe the sister.
Yeah, she gets the house dropped on her. What did she do to deserve that?
I don't remember.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
You're a big help.
Let me go look up the stage.
No, I don't give a shit. But it doesn't matter. I'll watch a fucking TikTok video.
I just remember, like, as I was watching, I was like, oh, that's kind of like a fun, interesting like idea of this. I never read the book, so I have no idea. The differences there between the stage show, other than songs, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's Act 2 is just dealing with the aftermath of being labeled, this evil witch, but really it's just like, I just want to make out with my boyfriend.
So the water thing is it doesn't hurt her. Because in the book, I remember she definitely couldn't get wet. She had to like bathe in spices and certain, dry rubs to keep herself clean. Because like that's why she never cried, because it would burn her face, and so she was very stoic. And in this, she's crying at one point, and I'm like, are they gonna? Nope.
Well,
no burns?
I don't remember if she like got hit with water and it didn't have an effect, but I think it could be that she is affected by water, but it's one of those things where like the curtain goes up and then you see her like shrink into the ground. And it might have been like a stage thing, like, oh, you see, like her body's gone, the water defeated the Witch of the West, but really she just like used magic or something to like make it look like she died. I don't fucking know.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
so Glinda just gets better at being a magician. That's another thing. I don't like you don't really learn much about the school. You're there for a very long time, but it seems like I could only assume in Harry Potter they're learning spells and things like that, and this feels like they're just learning more of history. I was expecting more magic stuff.
Yeah, they probably just like Harry Potter did the best. We can't. They're just going to compare it to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So let's get out of there.
I'm not going to say this is a bad movie, not at all. And I'm sure this is going to be one of the best movies for people who like the musical, like musicals in general. This is going to really, tickle their fancy. But for me personally, this was kind of a slog. I checked my phone for the time, and I still had an hour and 40 minutes left. Like I had a whole other movie to watch left, and so I had a bad time watching this because one, I had a family of fuck faces next to me who were just like talking through the whole thing, so that was annoying. It feels like maybe this movie needed to be more saturated because it felt kind of dull, and it was also out of fucking focus. And so I went out and I was like, hey, you guys got to focus this shit up. And then they said they did. It didn't look better. Like the title card comes up and you can see the blurring around the wording. And I had heard that if you need to get up and go to the bathroom, wait for the train sequence, which I think that's kind of a bad idea because it's very far into the movie before you could get up. So I did, and I went back and I talked to a manager, and they're like, oh, we adjusted it. Did it not look better? I'm like, no, it looks like trash. If you see any text on the screen, it looks awful. Oh, well, sometimes maybe a screw gets loose in this. I don't give a shit. You're a movie theater. Have your shit bright and in focus. And I even asked, does the bulb need to be changed? It looks a little dull. No, bulb's fine, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, well, let me get you a refund. It's like, no, I have the Regal pass. It doesn't matter. It's free anyways. Well, let me give you a pass anyways. And, they don't give out the readmission. I mean, maybe they do, but she didn't. I got a fucking paper receipt with a barcode on it that says for one free movie. So I gave it to my aunt. Like, here, you could have this. It was crappy. So
God, I hate this place.
yeah. And then so I go back in, and then when I'm done, like the credits are going, and I'm like, hey, there's words on the screen. I just walked away, and I was being kind of a dick, but it's like, you say you can't focus it because there's no words on the screen? Well, watch the fucking credits. So, maybe if it was a better presentation, I would have liked it more, but I doubt it because I really didn't like any of the songs. Every time they started to sing, I'm like, okay, I've heard this has got the soundtrack, and none of them are very memorable to me, but also not a music guy. So,
I mean, there's a lot of theater nerds who would
shoot me in the face for this, yeah,
because this is like one of the big ones, in the top 5 or 10 or whatever, and Defying Gravity and Popular and The Wizard and I and
bad. Popular is a fine song, and the only scene that I think is legitimately funny, just because Ariana Grande's comedic timing is so on point. She's a star.
Like I assume there were big dance numbers. Were any of those interesting? Were the set pieces?
I mean, it's a great looking set because it's mostly practical. Very little. I say very little CG, but there's plenty of it in there.
Sure.
But the sets are physically there.
Was Goldblum just Goldbluming it up?
Does he ever not Goldblum it up? He's just Jeff Goldblum. And the Wizard's her dad, right?
I don't remember.
Okay, because they show like her mom had fucked some dude that wasn't her sister's dad, and they don't show his face, and he's drinking a green vial, and he sings a song about, "Ooh, I'd love to be your dad." They don't outright say it, but it has to be.
Yeah, that probably tracks.
All right, thanks, Steve.
It's been a while,
but yeah, Goldblum just does Goldblum. That's
all right.
He's not an actor. Maybe back in the day in this Fly, but even during like the Fly, he's still doing his mannerisms, and he knows that's what people want. They don't want him to dig deep and find a character and transform into something. They just want his stuff.
So what would you give this as a grade?
Oh, I gave it a C. It's perfectly fine.
See,
it is just a movie.
All right.
But let's get to our main topic.
Gladiator 2. Now I can talk.
Now you can talk.
Because I've seen this.
Yeah. And you're a big fan of original Gladiator. I am not. This was like the worst weekend for me. Like period piece and musicals. God, not my thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a big fan of Gladiator or like Braveheart. They're not important to me.
Mhm.
I understand Gladiator stands the test of time because of like its pushing of special effects and things like that, but it never really hooked me as being like a great movie.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think a lot of people think for Gladiator, it's one of those Best Picture winners that is on the lower end of Best Picture winners. Like, is it really a truly iconic? If you put it up against other movies, is it going to be better than them? Maybe not. But I loved Gladiator growing up. Like after watching like stuff like Lord of the Rings, and so like I got into any movie with a guy with a sword. I'm like, let's watch this shit. So Braveheart and Gladiator, I watched those around the same time, right up my alley. Watched them multiple times because they're also the two movies that constantly play on like TNT or AMC or whatever.
Classic dad movies.
Yeah. So I watched them multiple times on DVD, and then probably like if I was channel surfing and they popped on. So I was a huge fan of Gladiator. So when this was announced, I was like, why?
Yeah.
I had very little expectations. And then as the movie, the trailers dropped and, people started talking about it. It sounded like, oh no, this is good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, it piqued my interest a little bit. After seeing it though, it's fine, but it doesn't need to exist.
Yes.
So, I mean, the general thing for me is, it did that. We're doing a movie decades later thing of, that movie you liked? Well, we made it again.
Yeah.
But with a couple different characters.
That sequel, remake, the requel.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens of the Gladiator.
That's exactly what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
It's the Force Awakens of Gladiator.
I was saying, it's Gladiator 2, TOO. It is also the movie Gladiator, just differently. Should call it Gladiator as well.
I mean, even like structurally, it hits all the same beats. It's you open the movie with a big action sequence with your hero character. He gets taken. He has a African American sort of best friend character who they get put into the same arena that they get put into in the first movie, where he goes, "Are you not entertained?" But you don't have a real cool line like that really in the sequence. And then, he even gets like a cut on the same arm where they're stitching it up in the same way that they do Russell Crowe when he's like scraping off the old tattoo of his army or whatever. And you have the crazy rulers who are like possibly incestuous, who are just like insane.
The syphilis twins.
The syphilis twins, yeah. And it's just all the same stuff. And it's basically just like, okay, when you look at the action sequences of this movie, they're all bigger, but are they better? Because it's just like, well, we did a bunch of interesting human fights in the first one. So how do we up the ante? Well, instead of them coming out and being chained together in their first Gladiator fight, they're going to fight monkeys. Which I didn't like. That would have been scary, and I imagine interesting thing, because I'm sure they did fight monkeys and stuff.
They threw any animal they could find in those arenas.
They were just killing whatever. But part of what I liked about Gladiator is it felt like you were really there, but when you have all these CGI monkeys running around, it just feels like, okay, well, this seems silly. It might be historically accurate. It might be the best that they could do with the given situation. I wouldn't say like it's shot poorly. It just feels weird.
Those were real tigers in the first one. They may have been composited in, but they were real tigers.
And also they looked like no monkey I've ever seen.
I think they're mandrills, like Rafiki. So, but just hairless. So I don't want to call them rabid, but they look like rabid monkeys, rabid zombie monkeys.
They looked weird. And then you have your next fight where it's the Gladiator versus the bigger Gladiator.
The champion, wasn't he like or like he was a retired in the original Gladiator, wasn't he like a retired champion and he was coming back to fight Maximus because
Maximus was doing so well.
doing too good.
Yeah, and I think that was the fight that had like the lines and stuff. It's like, well, we can't do that, so we'll give him a big ass fucking rhino.
Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
they don't even kill the rhino.
but I mean, I think of all the fights, I'd like the rhino one
Sure.
the most.
Probably, yeah.
Not that it was all that like interesting a fight because it was basically 5 guys like moving around while one guy killed. But I just thought it was kind of cool. And then it's like, oh, well, how do we up the ante on the chariot race? Well, now we're going to fill the Coliseum with water. And it's going to be a boat battle. But it was just like...
with sharks!
with sharks. Because you got to have an animal in each fight. So, I mean, I get why you would do that. Because it's like, well, we can't repeat... We just don't want to have them fight humans again. But it just felt like... I don't know. It became a CGI fest. Because now every fight has to have a bunch of CGI animals thrown in. And then it just... None of the fights really worked for me all that much.
Yeah.
And then you have Paul Mescal's character, who I think is good casting for Russell Crowe's son character.
Sure, but he does not hold a torch to Russell Crowe.
No, 100%. Because what I think part of the charm of the first Gladiator movie is Russell Crowe's character isn't really like he's your stoic hero character, but he still played off other people really well, like his relationship with Proximo and Digimon Hausu. I know that's not his name, everybody. As a running joke. But he had like buddies.
Yeah.
And even there was that like big hulking guy who was with him who like, you know, didn't have much lines, but he was just kind of like a recognizable face that, you know, he really built like a family with this crew where Paul Mescal's character is just kind of like he won the first fight against that monkey and everyone's just like, we should follow this fucking guy. And so he never really like built a relationship with anybody. Except for Denzel's character, who everyone's talking about it. You know, this Denzel's stealing every scene. He's gonna get another Oscar nomination and all this stuff. I didn't see it. It didn't work for me. And it's not from like he's doing an American accent. Like that doesn't bother me. Like,
don't care.
Let Denzel do Denzel shit. But I feel like the only reason he's kind of stealing all the scenes is just like he just feels so out of place to me. In terms of just like, I think he's just in like a totally different movie. I think he's the most interesting character because we don't know much about him and we don't know where his allegiances lie, and it's kind of like a wave of like, well, what's this guy's game or you know, whatever.
And by the time he shows his true colors, you're at the end and like, oh, you're the bad guy. Okay.
But I think he's stealing all the scenes because he's the only person with like real character arc.
Yeah.
He's the only one really doing anything interesting. But I think my main issue with this movie, out of everything, is just it has a villain problem because it basically has 3 sets of villains. Because we have your opening scene, Pedro Pascal is leading the Roman legions against Paul Mescal's army of whoever's and conquers them. And so you're like, okay, Pedro Pascal is the bad guy. And then the very next scene, he's just like, I wish I didn't have to kill all these people.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay, so he's not that bad of a guy. And then you spend the next hour with these 2 characters going like, okay, Paul Mescal's whole journey, or I should say Lucius, I guess, his whole journey is to kill Pedro Pascal. That's going to be like the final fight of the movie. But that's that's an hour, hour and a half in or whatever, and then there's still an hour of the movie left. It's like, but the whole time you never like, well, I don't want Pedro Pascal to die. Like you set him up to be the villain, but he's immediately like, oh, he's the good guy who wants to like
start a rebellion.
Rome. And there's a shot where later in the movie you find out that Lucius is the Lucius from the first movie because his name was like Hannah or whatever. In secret, and he's like tossed his name aside. There's a scene where where you see her like give up her son and like throw him on a horse, and you hear a voice kind of go like, you know, this way, and you see the back of a soldier's head. I thought that was like a young Pedro Pascal character, and I thought that was going to be like it looked like the kind of editing thing, like, oh, that's going to come into play later, but it never does. So I don't know if that was something or not. It was like, oh, okay, maybe Pedro Pascal was like, oh, I remember, like, I was the one who, like,
Yeah.
saved you because I put you on
Sure.
the horse and smacked its butt and it
Yeah.
ran off or whatever.
Yeah, that could have been something.
Because when they fought, I didn't really feel anything because I don't care about Pedro Pascal's character too much because, you know, it just felt like, well, why are you fighting him? And then I didn't care about Paul Mescal's character because he's not, like, really charming enough.
Mhm.
Like, I only care enough that he's the hero and Pedro's, like, not a bad guy. But I didn't really care about his character either. And then you have the two Emperor guys who they were kind of fun, I guess, but we've seen these, like,
Sure.
these Joffrey-esque young rulers who just want to, like, fuck stuff and kill stuff
Yeah.
and just, like, want to, and they're so greedy.
Mhm.
By the way, my wife did research. These guys ruled for a single year.
Really?
The movie has made it seem like they've the tyranny of these guys have lasted a while.
Yeah.
But their father died, and then they ruled for a year, and then the brother killed the other brother,
Mhm.
and then I think the other brother died not long after that, like after he killed his own brother.
So was their father he took up after Joaquin Phoenix, or was there more in between that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know how accurate this movie or how much it cares about accuracy of
Okay.
things.
They're like, hey, we got twin syphilis kings, and like that's cool. That's
yeah,
the
it's
villain.
a fun idea.
Yep.
Yeah. But okay, so they kill Pedro Pascal. We got to kill these emperors. They're our next, like, big fight against the thing. But then they're, like, immediately 20 minutes later, they're killed off by Denzel's character,
which pretty brutal. That sawing on the neck.
Yeah.
That was.
Oh, and then the ear thing.
Oh,
I had
yeah.
to close my eyes.
Yeah. I did like that he appointed his monkey as like his number 2. So
that's funny.
That's pretty good.
But it never felt like they were so villainous because, like, well,
you had to trust it. Like,
they're just
look
rich,
at them.
They're just rich fucking idiots.
They look gross, and they say bad things, so they are the villains. But yeah, we don't spend enough time seeing the spoils of everything that they're doing.
They're, like, in all the big action sequences because they're watching the fights, but you don't see how they operate in the Senate. You don't see the
bureaucracy or them not caring about procedure and everyone getting frustrated with them.
Yeah, you have no sense of, like, how they rule other than you just know, oh, they just want to conquer stuff. So when you finally do get to them because they're interacting with Denzel, they're killed shortly afterwards. And so, okay, so, like, almost why were they here?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Denzel, who spent the movie kind of being a buddy to Paul Mescal's character, but you're not sure if he's like, okay, he's clearly using him to some gain, but, like, is it to get Lucius on the throne? Is that the end game? Is it so he can be on the throne? And once he's on the throne of Rome, like, what's his goal there? Because the whole time he, like, never establishes like, what he wants, other than he just says, I want power. And the idea of, there's a good movie here, like, this is what Gladiator 2 should have been, about the guy who, if Denzel was a slave who fought in the pits, escaped, worked his way up, and then took over Rome. I don't care if it's historically inaccurate.
Yeah,
that could be an interesting story.
Yeah.
And then that has nothing to do with, like, Maximus and the legacy of Maximus and being the secret son of
name
this,
dropping that dude
of this. Like, I didn't need any of that. I would have just much preferred a story about an original Gladiator doing something, whatever, and then you can do your nods to Maximus with his name carved, and it's like, oh, here's the tomb where his body is. You can do all that shit, and it wouldn't bother me. But you didn't have to, like, make him the secret son of Maximus, to make him, like, the lost prince of Rome.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Terrible. It's always the person is like, I'm the secret prince, and I have to, like, I'm so tired of that trope. Couldn't he just been a guy? So I had a question about Maximus's, because his wife and son get killed at the beginning, right? Yep. And he's crying and snotting all over the place.
Yeah.
And then, did he have another woman in that movie? Like, did he find, what was her name, Connie Britton? Or
Connie Nielsen.
Connie Nielsen. Like, do we see her in Gladiator 1?
Yeah.
We do. Okay, so because it felt like
She and then one of the Senate guys were the only two people who came back from the
okay.
original.
It just like I couldn't remember that, and it felt like I remember a big deal about his wife and son dying, but like was he fucking around on the side, or he just got over him and had another kid? I just couldn't remember timeline
Yeah,
wise.
that's another reason I don't care for this. I mean, the first Gladiator movie never really established who Lucius's father was, but from the context of the movie, at least from what I remember, because it's been a few years since I've seen it, it always kind of you got the vibe that Joaquin Phoenix was the dad,
Oh,
even though they were brother and sister.
okay.
Because Joaquin definitely had a close relationship with that boy. Um,
What if that was a turn? In this, everyone's telling him, "Yeah, you're Maximus's son." Then it turns out, like, no, you are the evil emperor's son.
yeah.
What do I do?
And I like that they kind of like nodded to it, but then it turns out, oh, it's actually. But like a big part of Maximus's like whole thing was just like you killed my wife and child who I love so much. I saw visions of them at the end of the movie. I die and go to heaven. I see them in the wheat
Mm-hmm.
fields. Like he got to the people he loved, but it's like, hey, it was a long campaign in Rome, and me and the boys, we got to get her rocked off somehow. The princess throws herself at me. I can't say no.
Yeah.
That was my Roman accent, obviously. But so just him being an adulterer or whatever, or maybe whatever, I don't fucking care.
Kind of
just
shits on his legacy a little bit.
And it just feels kind of shoehorned in. Like it really could have just been another Gladiator.
Dude. Yep.
And you have the opportunity also to not use a white person.
Yeah.
You have this whole crew of like different Jesus.
Ethnicity.
Different ethnicities. Now I'm just saying it too
Races.
slow. People from other cultures, they can do something interesting and different you haven't seen before, bring a new element to the Gladiator franchise, and just see like, oh, what if someone wants to bring down Rome, or like I have a reason because Rome conquered my lands and they have made me a slave, and I can understand from a producer studio standpoint of just
100%.
like, do we like make another black person a slave thing? And it's just like they've.
No, I think it's more of, are people gonna go, well, we're not gonna watch a black guy, compared to Russell Crowe. No. And they see Paul Mescal and say, he's ambiguous enough. He could maybe, I don't know, some kind of Italian. Who knows?
In the first movie, they called him the Spaniard.
It's like he's got that olive skin. He's white enough for the white people, but maybe he's not too white. He's not New Zealand Russell Crowe white.
Yeah, I don't know.
But can we talk about Paul Mescal real quick?
Sure.
Who the fuck is Paul Mescal? I know this dude's name before this movie came out. I looked up his IMDb. I haven't seen anything else he's been in. Why the fuck do I know this guy?
He's big on the internet. It's been the ladies
Is that
him.
it?
He did a show where he made passionate love to Daisy Edgar Jones a bunch of times, and I think people find him attractive, and so he got kind of big. He's the male Sydney Sweeney right now. I'll say that for you. Oh. Except Sydney Sweeney's kind of had more high profile projects. Yeah. But where like some people shit on her for like picking just new
sexy roles. Yeah, you're using your sexiness to
he basically did a similar thing.
Has he hung dong?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see the show. I just know that's a big part of it.
Okay. Because if he has a huge cock, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
but other than that,
that's how you get movies, man.
I mean, just looking at him in this, I'm like, what's so special? Like Pedro Pascal could have been in this role, and I think
why wasn't Pedro Pascal the Gladiator?
Yeah.
I mean, not that I would necessarily want another Roman general put into because then you're doing it again.
Yeah. But at least he's closer to a Spaniard than.
But I mean, Pedro Pascal at least has like. The heat right now and the like, even though he didn't have like he was a major player in this movie, but it never felt like he was used a lot.
Yeah,
and it's a shame because I feel like everything I've ever seen him do, he's really good.
Yeah,
and I like Pedro Pascal.
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't have like a huge range, but I think the range that he does has he uses very well.
Mm-hmm. We'll see when Fantastic Four comes out. If he can nail that, then it's like, all right. You're great.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the movie is, well directed enough and well made enough, and
Sure.
Ridley Scott, being pushing 90 and still making like this kind of big epic thing. I have nothing but respect for the process of like making this movie.
Sure.
It just didn't do anything new or interesting.
Yeah.
And I wish it took a different angle of either having someone from like a different culture, and just like doing a different story that maybe has nothing to do with overthrowing Rome, but just like sticking it to someone from Rome who hurt me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a senator, maybe it's another general, or maybe it's just like two gladiators or two rival. There was a barbarian horde and the Roman horde and whatever, and they both ended up being slaves, and now there's two gladiators, Gladiator 2. And it's like, who will, they're gonna basically, it's like the boxing thing where they have to fight a bunch of fights and they finally get to fight each other at the end of the movie, and who will come out on top. Do that, Rocky, but Gladiator, something.
Yeah,
Just anything different.
This really felt like a television series, and they cut out all the fluff and turned it into a movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you had time to spend with him and his fellow gladiators, like, that was whole episodes of them bonding and learning how to maybe get out of this thing. And they went, nope, not crucial to the plot. Cut.
Yeah, he's not going to really bond with anybody except for the medic, who they have 2 scenes together.
Mm-hmm.
He has these scenes where it feels like they're designed to like really empower the other gladiators. Like when he fights the one, like Denzel's top guard or whatever, you would think the camera would cut to the other fighters and they're like, yeah, get him or whatever, like show this guy that we're not nothing. Or the scene where he's doing the rowing thing. It's like, oh, that's the scene from Unbroken where he's lifting the log over his head, and everyone's just like, yeah, show those guys. But really, everyone's just kind of like,
Mark.
Yeah, everyone's just kind of like, guys, it's getting pretty late. Can we like wrap this up? Like, no one ever really seems to care about this guy in the same sense. And I guess they are able to sort of undercut that because they go like, oh, well, he was captured with a bunch of other people from this land, so they already know him. And they already know he's the general. But like, I don't know, that was part of the charm of Gladiator, was like, this guy is essentially above all of you, but he's an equal to you now, and you guys all like band around him because he's like, oh, he's our best shot to get out of here. He's not a piece of shit. He wants what we want.
What if his wife survived and she was in the pits with him, and they got to fight together in the pits? I know they probably didn't have women gladiators or whatever, but having like, oh, husband and wife, you're both warriors, and then you chain them together and they have to do their fights together.
And that would have been cool because you established that his wife was a warrior.
A badass, yeah.
Yeah, but that's another thing. Like, I wish we had a little bit more time with them. I know we got really no time with Russell Crowe's wife, so I get why you would not do that. But it's just kind of like, you see her get shot with an arrow and, she dies. But I feel like that you don't feel as bad for her in that situation because she actively said, I'm going to be a participant in this battle where I knew I could die at any given moment. So it's just like, him going like, I'm going to get revenge for them killing my wife. Like, your wife was probably going to die anyway. There's a good chance you were going to die in that fight. Where like Russell Crowe, you could go, oh, I see why he's so upset, because my wife and son were innocents. They were not near a battle. They were at home waiting for me to return, and they were killed by the people that I work for. Like, there was much more weight to that than, his wife, Arasha, or whatever her name was. So it just feels like you retread on everything, but you never did anything better except for like bigger action sequences.
That's why, I know it sounds stupid, but Nick Cave had a treatment for Gladiator 2 back in the day where it was like Maximus traveling through time and being part of bigger wars, like the opening of X-Men Origins Wolverine, like him traveling through time and being just kind of this vessel. That's a crazy, weird concept that back in the day they said, this is too stupid, too weird, nobody's going to like it. But now seeing...
I think that would have been a terrible movie.
Maybe. But seeing how safe this sequel is and how dull it makes it, let's do something crazy.
Yeah. I mean...
He doesn't need to become the god of war, or anything, but I think that's just... It's an interesting take.
Don't get me wrong. I want to see... a movie of someone traveling through, give me the God of War treatment. I would happily watch Dante's Inferno or whatever, of just like a soldier going through hell, or meeting the gods of Roman gods. I'm all cool with that. Would I want it in the Gladiator franchise? No, because the Gladiator franchise hasn't really established itself as like a supernatural thing. So to go from Gladiator, Oscar-winning Best Picture, like for its this big epic sword and sorcerer, sword and sorcery, Jesus,
Sword and sandals.
sword and sandal. Thank you.
Yeah.
And this Ben-Hur type thing, and then it's like, but in the second one, we're gonna make it Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like, don't do that.
But then what do you do for the third one? You got to start somewhere. Then you have this warrior of legend that goes through the ages and then fights the Cthulhu monster that takes on Earth. Well, you start with the humble beginnings of Gladiator, and then you work your way there.
No.
Well, I don't want more of this. Take bigger swings, Hollywood. This is such a boring, nothing movie. I had no fun watching this. I give it a C- because it is so average, and it couldn't even top what I already thought was just an average movie to begin with. The politics, I don't give a shit about, but I can find that interesting. I watch Game of Thrones. I love the politics in that. Like, I got to be engaged with that. And then, so if you can't win me over with that, you got to win me over with the gladiatorial fights. You couldn't do that. Unless that you throw in weird monsters or aliens or something. I don't really care about gladiatorial fights. This is a big failure for me. I'm not going to give it an F or anything.
So you just want to go watch Thor Ragnarok again, so you can see the Hulk and Thor fight it out in the ring?
I mean, you'll have to cut all the Hela stuff and all the Meek and the Rock guy stuff. Like, I'm so upset that we didn't get more gladiatorial fights in Thor Ragnarok. Why can't we see other aliens fight? The Warriors 3 should have been taken there with him, like maybe separately.
We're on a different topic.
I know, but then we see them getting pasted by some crazy tentacle monster. I'm surprised we only got one gladiator fight in that.
But back to Gladiator 2, I think I'm going to give it a C, because I think I was entertained in it. Like, it's a perfectly fine. I wasn't trying to do a bit.
Yeah.
But it was fine. I wasn't bored. I think pace wise, it flew by pretty well. I checked my phone one time to see what time it was.
This one went faster than Wicked. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So I think like there is a decent movie here, but it's a decent movie that would be a lot better if the first one didn't exist.
Sure.
And so because it just, fails to add anything to the franchise or do anything all that exciting or interesting, C. I think that there is a better movie here. You just make Denzel the main character.
Yeah.
You make Denzel the main character, or you make it smaller and next to no connection to Maximus.
Yep.
Or you just make it 2 years after. You make it in 2002. Go back 22 years and make it closer to Gladiator when it was like in the zeitgeist at the time.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. I don't see the point. And it just makes me sad that this keeps happening.
Yeah. Normally, with Ridley Scott, he does like a great one and a not so great one, and he goes back and forth between them. And I thought, okay, this is going to be one of his good ones, because his last one was Napoleon, and nobody seemed to really like that. Nope. Now we got kind of like two stinkers in a row.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a stinker. I didn't see Napoleon. From the trailer, I was kind of excited, but then I just heard it was dog shit, so I was like, okay, I'm going to skip Napoleon. But, if there's Oscar nominations for this, and it's making money, I wouldn't see it as a failure. The reviews for it are pretty solid, and I think this is a success. It's just the bare minimum success. This is a mediocre just film across the board in every major metric, and it's weird to say about a movie that will probably get at least one Oscar nomination. But hey, Norbit got an Oscar nomination.
Sure, yeah. Suicide Squad got Oscar nominations. But yeah, it'll probably be for like costuming, set design, things like that. But I don't think we're getting any acting.
I don't think it'll win any technical
editing.
awards. I think it'll be nominated for some, and I think Denzel will probably get nominated because he's got the hype train on him right now, and it's Denzel. But I don't think he's gonna win.
No.
I would, without seeing a real pain, I hope Kieran Culkin gets it. The last thing I'll say is what I respect about this movie, because I saw this movie in a packed theater as well. It was a small theater, Theater 9.
This was my bigger theater.
But my theater was full. And my wife and I, only white people. Or no, there was one other white guy in this group.
Oh.
Everyone else in this theater was black. And I just want to say, like, shout out to the black community for like sticking by Denzel all these years. Because when he dies or retires, I don't know who in the community, in their community, is like got the pull like that. Maybe there'll be someone down the line.
Yeah.
Because maybe it was going to be Michael B. Jordan, or maybe it was going to be Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors probably not anymore.
Not anymore. No.
Because it's not Kevin Hart. It's not The Rock anymore.
Yeah. They definitely love Denzel Washington and are willing to just see whatever. Because when I saw Equalizer 3, it was the same sort of thing. I think I was the only white guy in that theater.
Yeah. So good for Denzel, man.
Yeah, he's got his audience.
You know.
And he's the for the racist white people, it's like he's one of those non-threatening black guys. He's the one that he's got such a nice face, and I really like him in those movies. He's not one of the scary ones. So he's got like pull all over the place. But not from me. I don't like you, Denzel.
I just assumed when I went in here, like I just thought like it'd be a bunch of white people, because this is kind of like
this is a dad movie.
This is a dad movie.
This is Top Gun Maverick.
This is a Clint Eastwood kind of film, like vibe of you like history and you like violence and you like that
machismo,
that meme of when's the last time you thought about the Roman Empire or whatever? How often do you do it? It just came in all black people. I was like, all right, sweet, good for Denzel. But anyway,
one last thought. I find it funny that his mom was able to identify her long lost son because he picked dirt up with his hands.
He did it the same way his dad does.
Wow, you mean the thing that would dry off sweat from your hand so maybe you could hold a sword better? That's a uniquely thing to my son. Stupid. All right. Next week is Moana 2. I don't give a shit. Maybe if I'll see it.
I'm probably not going to.
That's fine.
Make an effort.
Next week will be Arcane Season 2.
Arcane Season 2 it is.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Steve? You want to plug your social media? You're very active on your social media. You don't even have a profile picture, motherfucker.
Yeah. I only have a social media so you can send me stuff. Because I don't post anything. I don't comment on anything. You don't want to share your son's life with everybody? Absolutely not.
You don't want to, all the weirdos to be like, oh, he's growing up so big. It's like my sister.
It would be you.
My sister has like a niece. Oh my God. I have a niece, my sister's daughter, and, she's young enough that she wants to do social media stuff. And I had to go like, hey, delete this one. I know it's just like her and her friends dancing around and stuff, but there's some fucking gross people out there. You got to watch this shit. So, yeah, good job, Steve. Keep your kid off the internet. Nobody needs to see him. Including me. Don't you ever show me him. All right, next week, Arcade. No, I said Arcade. Next week, Arcane Season 2. All right, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve. And for honor and glory, or whatever.